what we're going to start off with this morning. We've got Senator Gabriel Suswam here with us. He's the former governor of Benue State and, of course, former senator. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, the unemployment rate, the state of the economy, some of these policies are really being re-examined as to the kind of impact they're having. Yes, we know the petrol prices. We know the challenge lots of people are facing in the economy at the moment. But from your perspective, what do you think is the missing link? Why some of these things are going the way they are at the moment?
Well, thank you very much. When you have to discuss the economy of this country, it's an issue that touches and concerns all Nigerians. Because whether you talk about removal of subsidy, it impacts negatively on all Nigerians. If it is the policy of the central bank, the MPR, that is the interest rate, it impacts on businesses. If we talk about the issue of floating of our currency, it impacts negatively on the economy. And so what I think is that it is not just about talking about putting our economy together, but taking policies that can change the narratives of our economy. You have a situation where you remove subsidy. In the same vein, you float your currency. In the same vein, you increase the lending rate in your country. There's no way that that economy is going to be stable. And so why I listened to the VP talked about human capital development. Yes, you develop human capital, but then you must create an enabling environment where jobs will be available. It's not just developing the people, that those people, when you develop them, what are they going to do? And that is why you have a lot of universities now, that is human capital development, that are churning out graduates. If you go to NYC camps now, where people pass out from NYC, they're in their thousands. And immediately after that, you meet a lot of them. There's this palpable apprehension among the youth who are passing out from NYC, because what is the next level? Now, you are churning out graduates. There is no there's no environment, comfortable environment for them to fit in. So you are creating rather more problems in the economy than you are solving. So my take is that what we need to do, or what the government would have done initially, was to take this policy piecemeal, not to take these major policies that will impact on the economy at the same time. You know, no country has ever recovered, no developing economy has ever recovered. If we take the instance of the Asian tigers, who even now, it's a gradual recovery. If we take Indonesia, Malaysia, in that region, it's only Singapore that was able to pull out of these economic policies where you float your currency, you now increase the interest rate of this. And no country, developing nation, has recovered from it. And so it is very scary where we are now. It is not just paying lip service to it. It is that taking actions that can address some of these issues.
Okay. Incidentally, the VP was speaking at the Nasarawa State's Human Capital Development Program as a state. So now, recently, I mean, there's been several questions concerning the states and what they have to do. Because, yes, there are questions as to what has the federal government done with the subsidy removal, the funds that were supposed to go for that subsidy. Now, it turns out that states have received a huge chunk of some of those, even though they've given their reasons and excuses. But there are many who still wonder. They think the states are not pulling their weight in the economy. And the massive unemployment rates, they are resident in the states. The transportation system that affects a lot of them in the states. And so they think the state governors have been missing.
You know, unemployment in the states, when you talk about unemployment in the state, most of these states are civil service states. Now, unemployment should not be restricted just to employment in government jobs. You know, if we go to developed economies, people who work in cafe, people who works in malls, are all taken to have been people who are employed. Now, our economy, have we created such environment for young people who want to take jobs that they can maybe pay weekly or pay daily jobs? No. And that is why I've listened to the government talking about SMS, small-scale business enterprises. Those are the kind of things that we need to encourage. It's not about employment. When we talk about employment, people focus on, let me be employed in channel television, let me be employed in the ministry. No. If we focus on that, and that is why you are talking about state. Yes, states are collecting money, but are you looking at the value of that money?
Yeah, but what have they done?
When I was governor,
yeah,
if you have like 10 million, it can solve a lot of problems. You can even engage in a capital project. That's 10 million now is more like 500,000 in terms of value. So yes, they are collecting a lot of money, and a lot of them have gone to a few states where I see that they're addressing issues of infrastructure. You go to most states, you see governors constructing roads, doing some flyovers and all of that, because the difference between a developed nation and a developing economy is basically that of infrastructure. And so if we have that very high rate of deficit in terms of infrastructure, and you have these people putting in money, when money have lost its value completely, because you take $1 million now, it's about 1.6 billion. So most of the companies that are into construction are foreign companies, and they now try to charge in naira, but you know that they're charging basically in dollars, because something that would have cost maybe 500 before now will be like 2 billion naira, and they're translating that into foreign currency. So you take the whole economy and discuss what is the value of our money now. Of course, our money have lost value beyond our comprehension.
Yeah, but many of them knew this before they contested elections, and they promised us heaven and earth. And they're getting there now. And
as a former governor, when you are contesting, your perception of the office is different from what you meet on ground. That is a fact. Now, you contest, you make promises that you are going to do this, you are going to do that. Then you are in office. And then the resources, the assumption in the head of most people is that as a governor, money is unlimited. I woke up at times as a governor, you don't have a dime in any of the account of government, not one dime. You don't have. That's the truth.
Really?
Yeah, that's the truth. Nobody can believe that until you are there. Before I became governor, I thought that, money in government is unlimited. So now, that is not to give excuses for what some of the governors are doing. Some of them are doing well, some are doing badly. There's no doubt about that. But then we look at the value of our currency now. That is the value to an extent that it can achieve anything. Of course, no. Even that at the level of homes. The money that you use, if we're buying a bag of rice, at the rate of 12,000 naira, a bag of rice is over 100,000 now. So if they increase your salary to 300,000 now, would that have any positive impact in your family? No, because you're not just buying rice. Of course, you have a wife with children. Those children are going to school. The school fees that you were paying before, maybe school fees of your children was probably like 50,000. Now it's about 200,000. So what can 300,000 salary do to you as a person? So those are some of the issues that we have in our economy that must be addressed. How do you address them? That should be the question and the issue on the table.
And these are some of the issues that, quite a number of analysts have raised. Some of them economists too, have raised. You just raised the issue of school fees. Yeah. We're talking about human capital development. And, oftentimes you think about it in lines of education. Yeah. Nigeria, yes, government is investing, especially the federal government, investing a lot in tertiary education. The private sector has also come into that sphere. Federal government owns a few unity schools here and there. State governments own secondary schools, and local governments are supposed to be involved at the primary level. But we know that while these schools exist, a lot of them do not cater to the majority of Nigerians. Many Nigerians still pay school fees, which would have been one area where a lot of Nigerians would have been able to make savings if the education system was such that majority of Nigerians could send their children to government-owned schools. Yeah. Is it something that you think that we can get back, where governments, schools owned by governments, can be invested in sufficiently to appeal to people in the middle class to send their children to those schools?
Yeah, where we are now, I think that is quite difficult. The economy has degenerated so badly that when you now say that money should be put into government institutions at the primary level to tertiary, to secondary to tertiary, that you need a whole lot of money for you to do that. Because, for instance, you have federal universities that are owned by government. Those are universities that were some of the best even within the African region. University of Ibadan, University of Ife, Unilag, ABU, a host of them, Nsukka. Those universities have taken the backseat now. What you have now basically are private universities that most people are comfortable sending their children if you want quality education.
Isn't it a shame, really?
That is what I'm saying.
Because the promise behind the removal of fuel subsidy was that we should be able to get more resources to invest in these things. Part of the reasons why we're told that, oh, we should, we need to free our resources and we cannot be using everything to, put in one product, was so that we could get resources to put in education, in health. But so far so good. It turns out that promise now is a lie.
Well, the mistake I think that has been done is that, yes, you free some resources. Now, those resources have been shared to the state. I've never heard of the federal government saying that, we're keeping some of this money aside, even for a rainy day or for a specific project. You are sharing money. There should be, just like you've done the police fund, if you said it's okay for infrastructure, let me set a percentage of this subsidy aside so that we address infrastructure specifically.
So I thought during Jonathan's government, they tried to save.
That is what I'm saying. Now, this government, with the subsidy, I've never heard that. I don't know whether that is being done.
No, but the former governor at that time said, no need to save. Share the money now.
And he was there then.
No, I was there. You say that is what the problem is. Now, Obasanjo insisted and saved some money. Now, as president of the country, if you think that there are monies that are available or excess of those monies and that some part of it should be saved, it will be done so. During Obasanjo, under the then Minister of Finance, Ngozi, we were able to save some money, but I think that money was expended shortly after.
But it was under the threat of going to court, under the threat of going to court. And remember, a number of issues had to be settled out of court in the Yar'Adua era.
Let me tell you what happened. Yar'Adua was the person who called us as governors. You recall that monies were put together for the power project. When you heard saying that 12 or 16 billion were expended. Yar'Adua called all the governors and said, look, gentlemen, we need to impact very well on the power sector. And the federal government alone cannot do it. So let us contribute money at the local government level, at the state level, and then put that money in a pool where we address the deficit in the power sector. All the governors accepted. That money was put in place. And that is why we're able to complete some of these 10 NIPP projects around the Niger Delta. That is Nigerian Integrated Power Project, NIPP project. So if a president wants, he can sit down with the governors and strategically plan as to what to do. And that was what Yaradua did.
Yeah, so that was for the NIPP. But yes. I remember clearly for the excess crude account, that account was virtually under threat almost every year because governors were threatening to take the president to court over the legality of the existence of that account. Much later, the Okonjo-Iweala, led finance ministry came up with the idea of a sovereign wealth fund for the country, which she marketed vigorously. But the governors were against it. I think the most that we could put in that account was $1 billion or so. No, and we don't recall that.
It was more than that. You see, if, like I said, when Yaradua sat down with the governors then, I was part of that meeting and had an agreement. It's different from you working up as president, knowing the constitution of our country, state clearly that this should be shared between the subnational and the federal and the local government levels. Now, Yaradua engaged us, said, look, I'm going to take part of local government money, I'm going to take the state, and the federal government is going to also contribute to the pool. And there was no agreement, there was no court, there was no governor agitating that, our money has been taken to a pool to address this power project. And what was the catch? He said that once this power project are completed, are marketed, then these monies will be returned. As I talk to you, no one dam has been returned to any state. As far as I know, those projects have not been privatized where individuals or private sector will come in. But the governors have a stake in this NIPP project. That is why you have the vice president as the chair, and then you have 6 governors across the 6 geo zones. From each zone, there's a governor representing who is a director on the NIPP board. It gives them, so nobody is making noise about that. But a situation where you work up as president and decide that monies meant for subnationals will be arbitrarily taken by you because you are president, that will lead to the kind of situation which you are talking about.
So are you saying that the governors were not carried along for the sovereign wealth fund? Is that what you're saying?
It wasn't a proper, you see, I'm talking to you of something that was involved. Yaradua called all the governors. You've never heard any governor make noise about that money that Yaradua elicited our support to take for a purpose. Now, when as president you are making press conferences and saying that you want to save money, and these monies that are meant to go to you and me, and I'm not properly consulted, even if you are the one you agitate.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that President Jonathan did not consult the governors enough?
No, there wasn't any proper consultation. I would have known that. There wasn't any proper consultation. Yes, they were talked about that, but then proper consultation are sitting us down and saying, look, this money, this is for what purpose it's meant for. This is how it is going to impact your state. You know, Yaradua told us the impact that the power sector is going to have on various states and the economy of this country. And every person could relate to that.
So are you saying that as governor, you were not in support of the Sovereign Wealth Fund?
Not that I wasn't in support. I wasn't properly consulted. There are two different things.
So if you were consulted, would you have supported it?
Of course, yes. Because, you see, as a country, we need to save money for a raining day.
Yeah, but when we saw what it was meant for, couldn't government say, okay, look, let us go higher. Fine, you didn't consult us, but this is good. But next time out, consult us properly.
You know, unfortunately too, we were stressed. You know that when I was governor, I'll take, for instance, Benue State, the whole monthly allocation, the highest from my 8 years that I was governor that I took was 6 billion. Otherwise, it was 2.53 billion. And then you had this whole gamut of infrastructural deficit that you have to deal with. You have salary issues, you have gratuity, you have pension and all of that. And so everywhere where there was any kobo, your eyes were there. So when suddenly there was some excess money somewhere and monies that could solve your problem at the state is being kept somewhere, said to be kept by somewhere by the federal government, and without proper consultation, when you are entitled to that money, you know you're going to talk. Even at Yaradua's time, we had this problem, but like I said, he spoke with us and said, look, I'm taking this percentage. So every person who left there couldn't turn back and say, look, they're keeping our money somewhere. We don't know where it's going. We don't know what impact it will have.
Okay.
It was the difference.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Before we go into politics, let me ask you, Benue is significant to food security in this country. So what is it that you think should be done? And why do we still have some of these challenges today? Because many think if Benue put in place some very strategic policies, we should have been talking about challenges of food as we are today.
The problem in Benue is that of insecurity. You know, over the years, from Senator George Akume's time to my time to Otom's time up to now, Benue, that is, we are talking about close to 20 years of continuous insecurity in Benue. And these are basically peasant farmers. But because the aggregate farming activities there is very high, that is why Benue is a food basket. But once you have insecurity, people are being killed in farms, they can't go to their farms. It will be difficult for you to strategically plan anything. And that is why the farming activities in Benue have drastically reduced because of the insecurity. That is beyond a governor. It's beyond any governor. Federal government have to step in. And efforts, governor in, governor out, have tried consistently for the understanding of the federal government. I think that why federal government will feel that, yes, there is insecurity in this state. They don't know the magnitude of it. And so intervention from federal government have not been commensurate with the level of insecurity in the state. Now, it got worse during Otom's time. It has even escalated during the current governor's time. So the federal government should take more interest in addressing the issue of insecurity, just like what happened, you know, we're all Nigerians, we know what happened in the Northeast, where at that time, no local government in Borno was working. All of them moved to Maiduguri. So at that point, you can't say that people should go and farm. You can't farm. So ditto for some states in the Northwest. And then in the North Central, Plateau, Benue, and Taraba, to some large extent, are the ones that are impacted heavily by this insecurity.
Is that to suggest that if the local governments were properly constituted, they can't have any impact whatsoever? I know that there were recent complaints about the LG elections there.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the collapse of the local government in our state also have, I would say, have enhanced.
Has it collapsed, really?
Yeah, you would say so because we're operating a democracy. I'm not exonerating myself as a governor. I did the same thing that these current governors are doing. So no person should...
What was that? Right results?
Of course, no person should pontificate. Oh. I've seen some of my colleagues who have found themselves on the other side trying to pontificate that this is not right. When you were there, what did you do to change the narrative? Nothing. And so if you have a child, that child sees you beating your wife, his mom, every day. He grew up believing that it is the right thing to beat a woman. That is what has happened. Those governors who are the current governors saw what we did. So why should there be an exception? I think what should happen is that if this is not working and is creating problem in the society, all of us as stakeholders should sit down and say, look, this is not working. This thing about local government election is not working. But to now begin to pontificate and say that, this thing, it's not right. You've done the same thing because most of the people I've seen them who are in the Senate talking are former governors who did worse than what the current governors are doing.
For you, why did you do it? Is it that you couldn't genuinely get people to support your plans?
You see, because that is the system that I met.
But you could have changed it.
You see, yes, it is possible that one person can initiate changes. But in politics, you know, in the political space, that is something that is quite difficult for any one person to do if you are not the president. Look at what the president did. He had the powers. He went to court, asked for the interpretation of a particular section as it relates to local government funding. And the Supreme Court said, look, money should be sent directly to elected local government. Most of us, governors, would prefer to have caretaker committees because there are people that you just appoint and then you can treat them as you want. The president, by virtue of that interpretation of that section, have compelled each governor, each state, to have an elected executive in place. But being elected, you know, you can say you are elected when, in actual sense, you are appointed, because in virtually all the state, there has been no election. So you can't single out any one particular governor and say, look, this governor has not done election in his state. It is something that started towards the end of Obasanjo's tenure, went into Yaradua, Goodluck, President Buhari, and now President Tinubu. So now, if we now find out, and this is what it has done, the rural economy of this country has totally collapsed because there's no commerce going on. You know, once the local government are operating very well, there will be commercial activities because there will be money moving around. To that extent, you have a lot of these youth who will stay back in their rural areas. What has the collapse, the non-functioning, proper functioning of local government has led to the total collapse of the rural economy. And that is very dangerous. That, to some extent, would dovetail into a collapsed society. And that is where we are headed to. So once the democratic system at the local level is no longer functioning properly, as it is now, we must pay attention to it. I think the president should take more attention, because if that collapse, it creates more problems. That is why you're talking about unemployment. Yeah. Most of the youth you see even in Abuja now walking the street are youth that would have ordinarily stayed in their local government. Some are happy being employed in the local government. Now, there's nothing in the local government. So they must look for a living in urban centers. And most of these urban centers are state headquarters, the federal government capital. This is where they are drifting to. And what happened, the consequence of that is vices that you see: kidnapping, stealing, snatching of phones on the street, all kinds of vices, prostitution at the highest level. In Abuja here, it will amaze you what is going on. Young graduates who are girls will come here, hire one room, stay like 20 of them in one room, and then try to sort out themselves. It is because of the collapse of the rural economy of this country. And I believe that the government should have looked at the interest rate. You see, when you take certain measures, you say you want to control the cash flow in the system. What about the businesses? Now, the MPR is 27.5%. If we go to borrow from a commercial bank, it's about 34, 37. Which business, even Yahoo business, cannot pay such money? So which business, which means that in effect, you've totally, in trying to address one problem, you've killed the small and medium scale enterprises within the country. And those are the ones that sustain an economy. When you talk about GDP of a country, the aggregate growth product of a country, it is not the employment in government. It is the economic activities which include, of course, these small and medium scale industries. If we go to developing economy, that is why they say they're developing, because every business, every employment, if somebody who is serving in a cafe, he's said to be employed, and his family is happy because he's paying their bills. Here, you've killed that by one single policy of trying to control the cash flow in the economy. Then you've forgotten that people who are doing businesses, who should only borrow money from the bank and sustain their business, can no longer borrow that money. Those businesses are dead. Those that they have employed in their enterprises are on the street. So look at the chain of events that happened by that single policy. Then the same person that you've sent on the street cannot afford to even move from one point to the other, because you remove subsidy, transportation has gone up very high. So I think that the president should call a meeting of not just economists, because most time economists are talking theory. The practical thing on ground is that people cannot transport themselves to their offices, right? There's reduction in productivity in government. People cannot afford to feed their families. A crate of eggs that was less than 1,000 is 10,000 now. So it means that me and you cannot afford to eat egg in our houses.
Me and you, how? Me, maybe. You. I doubt that you cannot afford eggs. But I'm sure I ask questions for you.
You're assuming that because I left government house almost 10 years.
You eat eggs like normal business.
Well, you know. Well, but I think I align with you and Chamberlain on this one. Well, Your Excellency, on this one, I think you're on your own, because you are the only one in the studio with us now who is called Your Excellency, and it comes with a lot of opportunities, one would say. But, you know, let me I'll take you back to what you mentioned the other time about the funding of local government councils, particularly in the light of the decision of the Supreme Court. Part of the provision of the Constitution is that it's not just the federal government that contributes to that purse. The state governments also should contribute to that purse. In the light of what is prevailing currently now, what are the challenges that you think governors could be having depositing money into that purse for onward transmission to the local government administrations? What would be your recommendation as a former governor?
No, you see, there is what you call joint account between the local government and the state. That is what, in effect, by the implications of the judgment now, that has to stop, because money will now be sent directly to local government account. You are no longer going to have that joint account that you just talked about. Now, the challenge is that the monies for local government is meant to pay primary school teachers' salaries, is meant to address a whole gamut of issues at the local level. Now, why it is good to have them control that money is going to generate a new set of problems at the local government. Because in most states, you have a lot of primary school. The monies that will come to such local government might not necessarily be enough for them to pay teachers at that level and attend to other problems. So it's going to generate a whole lot of new problems.
But that's the money from the federal government. My sincere apologies, Your Excellency.
No.
That's money from the federal government. How about the one that the states are supposed to contribute to the local government? Shouldn't they also transmit to the local governments?
I will tell you something. The state, for instance, in most states, Chamberlain talks about the issue of unemployment. You observe that most states have over-bloated side wage bill because they need to employ people in the service. And so the state are also taking money from the same source as local government. All of them come to federation account. It's from federation account that monies are sent to accounts of state. Now they'll be sent to accounts of local government. So most states don't have money to add to the coffers of the local government. Rather, most states were taking money from the coffers of local government to add up to sort out their problems, problems of salaries, problems of even projects. Now that you are going to have money going directly to the local government, a lot of states are going to find themselves in big problem. So no state have separate money that they can send to local government. Money all come from the same source. Given the fact that most states are able to generate internal revenue that will cover their own expenses and then have some excess that they can send to local government. That is the problem. States that generate internal revenue, maybe states like Lagos, maybe Rivers State, very few states are able to generate internal revenue that they will be able to cover their own expenses and then send some to the local government. But I don't think they even do that because there's so much to be done with money generated internally at the state level that I don't think any state send money to the local government. The local government themselves, by the constitution, are allowed to generate their own revenue, and most of them do. But you don't even know what, because there's no proper supervision at the level of local government to know what they are doing with the money that generate internally.
So I thought that the function of supervision was that of the houses of assembly at the states.
No, the local government have their own legislative houses, which are supposed to supervise the executive, but that doesn't happen because, you know, what has happened at the local level, we need to sit down properly and look at it. The local government level in this country is no longer functioning. It's not functioning anywhere. If any person says that in my state is functioning, it's a lie. Because I've been part of it, I know. It is degenerating down badly. You know, during Obasanjo's time it was better, during Yar'Adua's time it was better, but it had degenerated now so badly that you see what you see on television, where I saw the Imo State Electoral chairman announcing result without even calling other parties. We call Chamberlain, you call the local, he says he's the winner, without setting the result and the other parties, what the other parties score. That is what it has gone to.
Well, I think your counsel...
You won.
My apologies. I think your counsel for a sit down about the local government administration is something that needs to be taken very seriously. But speaking about the states, one of the issues that Chamberlain and Malkwe have raised with you earlier is that of how difficult things are for many people in the various states. So I just want to find out, seeing that according to the federal government, there is more money, more allocation to the states now since the purported removal of subsidy. So the states now tend to get more resources. Do you see a role for the states, the state governments, to ameliorate some of the pains that their people are going through, maybe in terms of food security, in terms of the transportation, healthcare, things that people pay out of pocket for? Do you see a role, a responsibility for states to step in and, you know, ameliorate some of the pains and sufferings of the people?
No, yeah, of course. You know, you are elected as state governor, you are elected members of House of Assembly of your state. The Constitution copiously makes provisions for the roles of the state as far as the issue of welfare in their various states is concerned. And that is why resources are sent to the state for that purpose. The issue of mismanagement is something that is common knowledge in our country. And if we want to talk about issues like that, this interview is not enough for us to discuss. It's something that me and you know, that there has been a lot of mismanagement over time. What it has done is that culminated to a level where it is now manifesting for even children born today to know that, yeah, there are issues in the system. Before now, most people, because you could freely move around, monies that you will pay could solve your problems, people didn't know that there's something eating the economy of this country. Now we found ourselves at that level. What we need to do is to honestly address some of these economic problems that we have. And the way to go is not just paying lip service to agriculture. Because if we take the India model, India will take a state like Benue and decide that Benue is where we're going to have agriculture. They will build roads there. They will create a region where they will build good hotels there. They will decide that we're farming rice and yams in Benue. And every person who is interested will be given monies to go and invest. When you go there, you find good schools there. So you might decide to stay there. Your children will be going to good school. So your commitment will be in that place for you to produce, whether it is yam, whether it is rice or guinea corn or whatever that you are doing. So if we adopt the Indian model and government, the federal government, consciously, in partnership with the various states, engage in comparative advantage. Benue State have comparative advantage in yam production. So we'll concentrate on that, create flour, yam flour industries in Benue, get people who are interested in doing that. If we go to Kebbi, for instance, Kebbi is known to produce a lot of rice. They have comparative advantage in that. If we go to Kano, things like ginger and other crops that they produce around those areas. So it is something that we must strategically do. It's not just giving people fertilizer. That is not enough. Fertilizer every year does not solve the problem. It is for us to be strategic. And can we copy what other developing nations? Because they have left us. India, Brazil, all those ones, Korea, all of those ones were in the same bucket as we are. But you go there now, they are far developed in terms of agriculture, in terms of industries, whatever. So we must copy from them. They were copying from us then. Malaysia came here to look at how we're treating our palm kernel. Now Malaysia is a major exporter of palm oil. We're not exporting even drums of palm oil to anywhere.
We clearly have our work cut out for us in terms of what we need to do. But we have to thank you for coming on at this point in time, Senator Gabriel Suswam, former governor of Benue State. Business Morning comes up now.